Shout out to Dom, Armando, and all the awesome people I met at Super Fun Meetup 2.0. What's up YouTube, Jerryland here with NOBA Tech, bringing you the battle of the Sony Zooms. We have the 16-35 here, and we have the 10-18 here. I'm here to help you figure out which one you guys should buy for yourselves. So for this battle, for this showdown, we're gonna go over the obvious spec and price differences that make these two lenses different. And then we're gonna go into my personal opinion about which one I think you should choose for yourself in different scenarios. So first off, it's obvious. This is a giant chunk of Zeiss glass. This is a smaller chunk of Sony glass. This guy retails for 750 bucks. This guy retails for 1,250. They are both f4. This is a full frame lens, and this one is only an APS-C lens. So they both have OSS, or optical steady shot, which means they both have stabilization. They both come with their own lens hoods, but this guy also comes with an extra little carrying case, or it's just kind of like a little carrying pouch, whereas this one doesn't come with anything. This one right here, the 10-18, has a minimum focusing distance of just 0.82 feet, and the 16-35 is just slightly higher at 0.92 feet. So both really good minimum focusing distances. So something I gotta mention about these two zoom lenses, check this out. The way this guy zooms, it comes out of the body a little bit. It's not that big a deal, but check this out. The 16-35, we're at 35 right now. That's 16. And what's different about it is that the lens hood pops out further. But on this one, the lens hood stays still. It's the inside that pops out. So the lens hood is attached to the outside of the camera body itself, whereas this one is actually attached to the part that zooms. Not a huge deal, just wanted to mention it to you guys. Also wanted to tell you the exact weight difference between these guys. The 16-35 is a whopping 1.1 pounds, and this one weighs just about half of it at 0.5 pounds or 8 ounces. A lot lighter, and it makes a big difference when it's on camera too. This with the A6300 is so lightweight. This with my A7S II is a decent amount of weight on my wrists. So there you go, do with that info what you will. And this is where we get into my personal opinions now. I'm currently using the A7S II, which is a full frame camera for those that don't know, and my second camera is the A6300, which is actually an APS-C sized camera. So I do have both full frame and APS-C, but how does that weigh in on what lenses I choose? So everyone knows that having a good wide angle lens can be extremely versatile. You can get great close-up shots, you can get large landscape wide shots, and it's just extremely awesome to have a wide angle lens in your arsenal. But to have a wide angle zoom is even more convenient because you get that wide angle, but you also get a little bit more range on that. And that's where I think the 10-18 kind of falls short, because it only goes from 10 to 18 millimeters, which is still very wide, and it's not that big a range. Whereas on the 16-35, the 16 covers your wide angle, but you can go all the way out to 35, which is a great all-around, walk-around, everyday focal length. So I think in the zoom aspect, the 16-35's gotta win that one. So we've talked about zoom range, but now what's important is the fact that I have an A7S II, which is a full-frame sensor camera, and again, I have a 6300, which is a APS-C sensor camera. So my 16-35, when it's on my S2, it's 16-35. When I put it on this guy though, it has a times 1.5 crop, which basically makes this around a 24 to like 50 something. So basically I have a 16-35 that can also be a pretty handy 24 to, let's just say 70. I know it's not 70 at 1.5, but it basically gives me two great zoom lens focal lengths in just one lens. Whereas my 10-18 on the APS-C camera, again, has a 1.5 crop, so it becomes basically like a 16-24. So it's not even necessarily 10-18, so I don't get as wide as 10, which is what I would love to have. But I can actually use this on my S2 in full frame mode without cropping in, but I can only use between 12 and 16 millimeters. So this will get you really wide on the full frame camera, but some people might not want that. So I have a full dedicated video on the A7S II and how you can record 4K video with a crop still. So you can use this at a higher focal length as well, just like how I times this by 1.5, I can times this by 1.5 as well. So in that aspect, both of these lenses are pretty versatile, so it depends on how wide an angle you need, versus how far a reach you hope to get. So this one can get you to about 50 something, and this one can only get you to about 24, I believe 27 is correct. So I know that Dave Dugdale made an awesome video about the 10 to 18 versus the 16 to 35, and that video helped me out a lot when I was trying to make my decision. But what's important to remember is that that one is mainly focused on when you're flying one of these guys on a gimbal. So if you're flying on a gimbal, I agree with him. I would stick to the 10 to 18 just because it's so much lighter. But if you're looking for one great lens that covers your wide angle and kind of your everyday focal length, like the 35, honestly, I think the 16 to 35 is your better bet. I absolutely love that I can use the 16 to 35 on my full frame and still crop in slightly and be able to get about 24 to 70 as well, because before I was contemplating between the 16 to 35 and the 24 to 70. So I really love that. Shout out to Craig Adams for turning me on to that. Something else that helped my decision is this is just such a solid piece of glass, whereas this one definitely feels a lot cheaper and just not as good quality. Granted, it is quite a bit cheaper than this lens, but it's still a decent amount of money for a piece of glass. So one of the last things that we need to cover is actual image quality, and I gotta say that they both give you really amazing, really crisp footage, because we're mainly talking about video here, not photography, sorry guys. But with the T-Star coating, I really do believe that there is a difference in image quality. Granted, to the normal eyes, it's really not that big a difference. Like I've always said, with my 28mm Sony lens versus the 35mm Zeiss glass, personally I think the 28mm looks better and it's half the price of that. But with this one, I do think the 16 to 35 is better. The last thing I have to say about this is that I love having a full frame lens that can work perfectly on my full frame with no crop, which is my better camera, but can also work on an APS-C lens, and it just crops it automatically. It uses part of the lens instead of all of it, whereas the 10 to 18 works perfectly on my APS-C sensor camera, but on the S2, my full frame camera, it only uses part of the sensor. It's an incredible sensor and it's full frame, so I'd love to be able to take advantage of the whole thing. And that is, again, one of the reasons why I decided to go for the full frame 16 to 35 glass. So now overall you know what my opinion is and which lens I prefer, but I want to help you guys make your own decision, so let's go ahead and roll into some footage that you guys can check out, and at the end, we'll wrap it up and tie it all back together. So just to hook you guys up, let's do some indoor video examples as well as some outdoor ones. Alright, so this is a test shot of the 16 to 35 on the full frame S2 camera. It is all the way wide at 16mm, and I have not moved my tripod whatsoever, so you can see the huge wide angle difference. So before we were actually using a full frame 28mm lens, and that was pretty wide, but check this out. You can see so much more of my table, you can see so much more of the surroundings. This is, again, the 16 to 35 at 16mm, and this is shooting on the full frame S2. Let's go ahead and zoom in all the way to 35mm and see what that looks like. Alright, so I don't know if the top of my head is cut off or whatever, but I'm keeping everything exactly where it is. So this is at 35mm on the 16 to 35 on my full frame S2, so you guys can see what that looks like as well. And again, the f4 really does not matter to me. You guys tell me, can you see that big a difference in the shallow depth of field between my f2.0 28mm and the f4 right here? I don't know, I don't see that big a difference, and I still love the image quality that comes out of this. I will say though that I did have to boost my ISO a little bit on this because the f4 did make a decent amount of difference in light coming in. Alright, so you've gotten to see this lens at its widest angle and its longest focal length, so let's go ahead and stay on the S2, but we're gonna go ahead and switch over to the 10 to 18, and again, I'm not gonna do any cropping whatsoever, so I'm gonna use it on the full frame so you can actually see the vignetting at 10, 11, and 17, and 18, because like I said, around 12 to 16, it's actually usable on full frame. So, let's do it. So, I know it looks crazy weird right now, there's like a square vignette, and I wanna tell you why. So on the full frame S2, if you have the lens hood screwed on, this will get you this weird little square thing. But let me go ahead and show you. So we're at 10mm right now on the full frame sensor, not cropped in at all. Let's go ahead and take that lens hood off. Just for fun, I did that on camera so you can see that it was real time, and you can see a huge difference already just by taking the lens hood off. So that is a quick tip for you. Okay, so this is again 10mm on the S2 at f4, What do you guys think? I actually think the vignetting looks kind of cool. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit, and I'll do it real time. So again, you can see how wide it is and how much you can get into the shot. But let's go ahead and real time zoom in a bit so you can see what it looks like. So I know audio isn't gonna be as good because I'm behind the camera, but I'm gonna go ahead and start zooming in. You'll see that the vignetting starts to disappear. Currently I'm at 14 millimeters. Keep going. There we go. I went all the way to 18. So, there you go, guys. 10, 18. 10, 18. There's no vignetting right there. Vignetting comes back. No vignetting. And I'm gonna say that yes, there is a little bit of vignetting, but you know what? I think it still works out. But let's go ahead and crop in a little bit just so you can see the big difference. So I'm gonna stay at 10 right now. I know the audio quality is different, but check this out. I'm only cropped into 1.4, not 1.5, and the vignetting is completely gone. Look at this. There's 18. There's 10. 18, 10, and we're still recording in 4K. All right, so right now you're seeing it on the full frame sensor, no crop. This is about 15 to 16 millimeters. What do you guys think? This is a test for you. I don't really have much to say right now because I'm just trying to show you the actual image quality when recording and show you the focal lengths and see what you think. So there you go. Now let's go ahead and switch over to my Sony a6300 and put both of these lenses back on it and see what it looks like. So right now we have the a6300 on the tripod and we have the 16 to 35 on it, and it is massive. It feels so big on the 6300, but here you go. You guys can see it's at 16 millimeters at f4. You can see how wide it is compared to when it was on the S2, and hopefully you guys like it. I'm gonna zoom into 35 real quick, then we'll swap over to the 10 to 18. All live. Boom. This is what the 35 looks like. I have no idea how zoomed in it is. It's probably like right here. So hopefully you guys like it. It gives you the range you need. So it is nice that if I want to not have to crop part of my sensor to get a 24 to 70 by using my S2, I can just throw this lens onto my 6300 and it crops it by 1.5 for me automatically. So there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch over to the 10 to 18 so you can see what that looks like. Dang, this looks wide. All right, check it out. So this is the 10 to 18 millimeter on the a6300 at f4 at 10 millimeters, and it is wide as heck. And I actually have the lens hood on right now so you can see that even with the lens hood on, because it's on the APS-C sensor, there's no weird square vignetting or vignetting in general, hopefully. So let's go ahead and zoom into 18. Boom. And that's what 18 looks like. So there you go, there's a quick indoor comparison. Let's hop outdoors and see what that looks like. All right, so again, we're on the Sony a6300. We're outdoors now. This is the 10 to 18 at f4 at 10 millimeters. Pretty wide. Let's check it out. At 18. What do you guys think? 18 millimeters. Okay, so just a quick little test outdoors. Let's go ahead and swap over to the 16 to 35, see what that looks like. Back at it again with the a6300. Right now we're on the 16 to 35 at f4 at 16 millimeters. What do you guys think? Now at 35, how's it look? This is the 10 to 18 right now on my S2 at full frame. So we're at 10 millimeters and I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in a bit so you can see the vignetting kind of disappear and reappear a little bit at 18 millimeters. So check it out. We're recording live. Let's put it at where I think it'll look good. It's about there. I don't know. What do you guys think? So let's go ahead and throw it into crop mode, see what it looks like. 10 millimeters right now on the 1.5 crop. So we said it's about 16 millimeters, I think, with the crop. So what do you guys think? It looks pretty wide, but again, if I do this with the crop, it basically just brings it to a 16 millimeter like the full frame lens that is better quality glass. So zooming in, all the way at 18 now. What do you guys think? Take a look. All right, so now we have the 16 to 35, which is on my full frame S2. So you guys can check it out, see what it looks like, compare it for yourselves, and let's go ahead and zoom in. This is now at 35, we did that live. I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you like the 16 to 35 better, or do you like the 10 to 18 better on the Sony a7S II? All right, so that about wraps up this showdown. I wasn't trying to sway you on either lens. I was just trying to give you all the information and try to tell you my opinions and my side of things and how I thought about it when I was choosing between the two lenses, and hopefully help you guys make a decision. Again, Dave Dugdale's video is amazing. Please go watch it. It helped me out a ton. But I wanted to try to help out people that maybe had both APS-C and full frame cameras and were trying to decide, and maybe people that didn't really have a gimbal, so they were just trying to figure this out for everyday use. So that's why I made this video. This was my battle. This was my showdown of these Sony wide-angle zooms. Hopefully this helped you out. Thank you so much for watching. If this video helped you out, make sure to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out when my next video drops. My name's Jerry Land with NOBA Tech, and to the next one and beyond.